From Babcock Field on the campus of Washington Community High School in Washington, Illinois, Clutch Sports Media is proud to present Mid-Illini Conference football. Today, a battle of 1-0 teams. The Dunlap Eagles have traveled to Washington to face the Washington Panthers. And there you get a look at Washington quarterback Nick Williams. His Panthers ready to take on the Dunlap Eagles, who defeated Pekin last week. Washington, fresh off a win against Limestone. We're ready for a lot of fun on ClutchSportsIL.com. And as we welcome you into Babcock Field, we'll welcome you into our whole team. John Camosa alongside. I am Joey Wright. And John, it's going to be, we say this every week, I feel like, but it's going to be such a fun one. You've got two 1-0 teams on similar trajectories coming off similar good campaigns last season. Dunlap shared the Mid-Illini Conference title with Pekin, who they defeated last week, and Washington was close behind. A playoff season for the Panthers as well, the 13th such consecutive season under head coach Daryl Crouch. Really a good litmus test for both teams early in the season. Yeah, this is two powerhouses in the Mid-Illini Conference. You know, expect a hard-fought battle both ways, and a lot of players that stand out for both teams here. Joe, you're looking at Kale Lambert for Washington, 4 touchdowns last week against Limestone, real standout there. And then you got Nick Williams, you know, under center, and Mitchell Gore, a great player for Dunlap, workhorse, you know, in the backfield. So it's going to be a ground and pound game. We're going to see a lot through the air as well. We certainly are. We are nearing tip-off here in Washington. And, John, talking about those players, Gore and Lambert combined for 7 touchdowns last week, 3 for Gore, 4 for Lambert. That's 42 points between two players. We might not even see 42 points in this game, though, because it's two teams that operate similar styles, ground and pound, you know, both teams. So we think Gore and Lambert are going to see a lot of carries, a lot of action tonight. Yeah, you're definitely going to see a lot of that. And you look at Mitchell Gore and his size, 6 foot, 240 pounds, tough player to bring down, especially, you know, in the high school level here. And Kay Lambert, when he gets an open field, it's just a tough player to stop. So, yeah, Joey, we're going to see a lot on the ground tonight, and, you know, it should be a really good game here at Washington. Certainly should be. And Lambert looking to get to that 100-yard mark perhaps tonight. We'll see how it all plays out. And it's two programs with similar cultures that enable that running game, right? It's strong offensive lines up front. It's the guys that get it done in the trenches that really can enable that. And I know, speaking with Washington and you know, head coach Daryl Crouch and the culture, the style of play that Washington runs, I mean, the offensive line and the defensive line, too, those are two big points of emphasis for the Panthers. Yeah, this is one thing we've seen with both teams throughout the last couple seasons here is the offensive line. You know, they have so many good blockers up front and really creates holes for your running backs. And I think you're going to see a lot of slant passes, too. You got Gabe Calhoun, one that likes to get out there and get it, could pick up some short yardages for you. And I think it's just going to be, like you said, one of those ground and pound games and should be an all-out dogfight. Certainly should be. Kickoff, as we mentioned, nearing at Babcock Field. The national anthem is upon us. A nice crowd here at Babcock Field, just about 20% of what would be capacity in a normal season. And as they prepare to rise for the national anthem, we'll prepare for a quick break. Mid-Illini Conference football on ClutchSportsIL.com continues after our nation's national anthem.
This athletic event is conducted under the regulations and the Mid-Illini Conference. We encourage you to demonstrate good sportsmanship throughout the contest, no matter what your personal feelings of loyalty may be. The throwing of any objects onto the playing area is strictly forbidden, and the officials are authorized to take appropriate action to ensure the safety of all. Thank you for your cooperation. Panther fans, please stand as the Washington cheerleaders lead us in the school song. And now will all of you please rise, put your hand over your heart, and remove your hats as our very own Mark Boobert sings the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
A beautiful rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner as we get ready for kickoff here in Washington. Welcome you into the show again. The Dunlap Eagles and the Washington Panthers going at it. I'm Joey Wright alongside John Camosa and a very large Clutch Sports Media team tonight. Happy to have the opportunity to bring this one to you. And John, as we talked about at the top of the show, just to recap some viewers who may now just be joining us, we expect to see a lot on the ground today. We expect to see a lot of carries for the star tailbacks, whether that's Cale Lambert for Washington or Mitchell Gore for Dunlap. But talking about the passing game, you can run to set up the pass, and I think both of these two teams do a pretty good job of that. Last week we were in Dunlap and saw Gabe Calhoun have a nice game in the air, star receiver for the Eagles, and Washington can throw the ball as well. So we're going to see not exclusively running, probably more running than anything else, but a good mix to some extent.
I think it's going to be pretty well balanced, and both teams might kind of exchange blows both ways. If Dunlap kind of picks it up on the ground, Washington might try to counter that, and if it's vice versa, through the air, you might see both teams kind of going back and forth. But yeah, expect Gore for Dunlap and Lambert for Washington to definitely get work today. They're going to get a lot of touches on the ground, and Calhoun's also going to get a lot of touches in the air. If Washington's defense can limit him, you're going to see a little bit more Gore.
We certainly will. And speaking of the defense, as we see Washington getting ready to go, speaking of the defenses for both sides, we'll see players like Drew Lewis for Washington step up, a defensive back, and Dunlap played a very solid game all around last week, was able to limit a good Pekin team to 21 points. So it's going to be kind of an old-school football game tonight. Looking forward to seeing it, and we will take a quick look at the weather as we get set to go. Kickoff temp right around 50 degrees, just about a 3% chance of rain. Don't think we'll see any precipitation tonight, and the temperature should stay pretty consistent through the end of the game. And not very windy either, so I'm sure our special teams units will appreciate that.
Yeah, Joey, with that quick transition from basketball season over to football season, still feels like, football weather that we would normally feel, later in the year, but got the little bit of nip in the air, and it's a really nice night for football, especially a Mid-Illini game between two really balanced teams.
Mid-Illini conference game between two really balanced teams in the middle of March. Crazy season it's been. It's week 2 of the IHSA football season. Playing 6 weeks this season, and you see the Panthers being introduced. We'll give you their offensive starting lineup, starting with the offensive line. Colton Wind is going to be the center. He will be surrounded by Seth Boswell and Nathan Stamper, the guards. James Wireman and Griffin Lucas are Washington's tackles. And then taking a look at the rest of the Washington offense, Nick Williams is the starting quarterback being introduced right now. He's under center tonight. Receivers are Isaac Mapson, Trace Bullard, tight end Jacob Bem, and Cale Lambert and Brock Skaggs, the two starting running backs for Washington tonight. Brock Skaggs is another option for Washington. Cale Lambert's going to get a lot of touches, but Brock Skaggs was the #2 option for head coach Darryl Crouch and company last week.
Yeah, he talked about balanced, and that's the thing. You know, if you don't see Gore getting a lot of touches and you don't see Lambert, there's a lot of other guys that can move the ball on this team, especially through the air and on the ground. So, Joey, we could see some guys step up that we don't normally hear about.
We certainly could, and we will get you Dunlap starters as we see them. Dunlap will receive the opening kickoff, and it's Gabe Calhoun back deep to return. K1 Irby is right in front of him, and Calhoun's going to go and have a word with, looks like that's Gavin Murphy-Carr over there, far side. But Gabe Calhoun, speaking beyond the quarterbacks and running backs, is probably the player that's going to have the biggest impact on the game, I think, offensively tonight.
Yeah, and we've seen that even on the basketball court. He's kind of a do-it-all guy, your glue guy, and I think that applies to the football field as well. He's a player that can do it all. Gabe Calhoun's going to have a big impact on this game tonight, Joey.
See how it all plays out. Paul Sporer will kick things off for Washington. Panthers in black tonight, and the Dunlap Eagles in white and gold. And it's Paul Sporer who will send it deep out to the far side, and we are underway in Washington. Glad you're with us. Dunlap returns the opening kickoff to about the 25-yard line. And a big mass of humanity, John. I think they're going to work it to the 30.
Not a bad return. Kind of a short kick there for Washington. Gives Dunlap some decent field position. See what they can work out on this first drive.
The kick return for the Eagles.
Kick returned by Graham Glover. And we get our first look at the Eagles offense.
The 31-yard line. First down, Dunlap.
It's Dunlap out to start things off for us this evening. And we'll see how much we see of Mitchell Gore and the Dunlap front. First play of the game goes nowhere, and that sets the tone for the plays to follow.
Yeah, and Dunlap likes to, work that ball right up the middle as they do right there. But that defensive line for Washington, they might give Gore some fits. Joey, they're not going to back down from a challenge, and they're certainly not going to back down from Mitchell Gore.
They certainly won't. And that's how you have to play Mitchell Gore. He's such a physical player, can do a lot up the gut, can move side to side well as well. 2nd and 8 coming up for Dunlap. One receiver sent out wide. That is Gabe Calhoun. Little motion. It is a handoff to Gore for the second consecutive play, and for the second consecutive play, Washington holds.
I think they were just going to try that out, twice right out the gate just to get a feel for it. And if they're getting shot down like that, they might go to the air here on this next play here, Joey.
Jonathan Kopinski came in and made the tackle. So, John, where do you go here? 3rd and not overly long, not quite 3rd and medium either, 3rd and 7.
Try to look for a slant right up the middle there. Got 3 out to your right.
Man in motion for Dunlap. That's Carson Roan. And out of the gun, a little bit of a high snap, and it's a nice feed to Gabe Calhoun. Calhoun up the far side, not quite to midfield, but a nice start for Gabe Calhoun and that Washington offense. And, John, that's kind of what we talked about, a star receiver in addition to a great basketball player as Calhoun, but kind of a sneaky player. You got to watch him on those sweeps.
Yeah, he's got a lot of speed, and if you don't see him through the air like that, expect those, plays in motion where he can get a toss and kind of break it loose.
Dunlap breaks the huddle, looking for more. A couple of minutes gone by in our first quarter, and a great crowd on hand here at Babcock Field. Watching the first down of the evening. And it is another handoff up the middle to Gore, and Gore got it to midfield. Dunlap's starting quarterback, I don't know how we haven't mentioned, is Madden Burke for the Eagles. Keep an eye on number 12 in white this evening.
Gain of 1 on the play, 2nd and
Braden
9,
Dietz
Dunlap.
played last week, of course, battered up a little bit. Not sure if we'll see one or both this evening, but now under center it is Burke, the 6-foot sophomore.
A lot of young talent behind center for the Eagles.
And that'll be our first flag of the evening.
Penalty markers before the snap.
I believe Washington jumped there, so we'll get the official wording.
Penalty is offsides against the Panthers.
And it is offsides against the Panthers. And speaking with
penalty moves the ball across midfield to
Dunlap
the
head coach Brett
46-yard
Cazalet before the
line.
season, John, said this is as many
Remaining
sophomores
second
as
down.
he's had in his time at Dunlap. 8 sophomores on the Dunlap roster this season, so it's a young team. They're kind of working through a couple of things. You might not notice that from the score of last week's game, but still a team that's a little raw, kind of working through those ups and downs.
Yeah, it's reassuring, too, as a coach when you see sophomores really producing and doing a lot of things for your team, bodes well for the next couple years for Dunlap.
Funneled back to Logan Silzer. Silzer had a nice seam up the far side.
Number 21, Logan Silzer.
And Logan
the carry
Silzer
for the Eagles.
picks up Dunlap's second first down this
Brought
evening,
down
John,
by
and
number
Dunlap has broken
23,
off a couple of those
Jack
big
Loomis.
chunk plays.
Yeah, and we right out the gate, we saw that player we mentioned so much of, Gabe Calhoun, but you saw a player like Logan Silzer.
First down, Dunlap.
Almost could have broke that one loose had he not been tackled there, Joey. So we could, like I said, see some guys that kind of jump out at you that we might not mention.
Silzer, one of 25 juniors on this Dunlap roster. They have 16 seniors, and we break it down for Washington. Washington has a little bit of a smaller roster, 18 seniors, 26 juniors, but then only 1 sophomore for the Panthers. 1st and 10 for Dunlap. See on the bottom of your screen, we've played 3.5 minutes, and it is a handoff to Gore. Gore stays on his feet.
Number 34, Mitchell Gore.
And Mitchell
the carry
Gore
for
has
the Eagles.
been limited early, John, but he's gotten some yards. He's not broken off that big
Made
chunk
by
play, but he's been
Haynes
efficient.
Smith.
And Joey, on that scouting report, I
Gained down
think
to
you
the
would
24-yard
assume
line.
Washington's defense knows that's coming right up the gut
Second
there and doing a good job of
and
kind of limiting him on yardage so far, and Dunlap looking for other ways to gain some yardage.
Sets up 2nd and 6. And we'll see how Dunlap approaches this. They're approaching the red zone for the first time this evening. Burke under center with Gore behind him. Or pardon me, that is Dietz who is into the game now. And wrapped up and dropped was Braden Orr. We saw Braden Orr last week for Dunlap. He's kind of that number 2 option for the Eagles. And the Washington defense, John, was right on it.
Yeah, they read that one really well there, Joey, and got back there in a hurry for a loss of yards.
A loss of 3.
Be a loss of 3.
3rd and 8.
And take away the penalty from a moment ago. That's the biggest loss in a single situation we've seen this evening, loss of 3. And that may be the first negative play for Dunlap, and we'll find out. Cody Roskins working stats for us confirms that is the first play for a loss Dunlap has run this evening.
Joey, I think we're going to see something potentially through the air here.
Instead, though, they heard what you said, right? They go up the middle, Braden Dietz.
Number 13, Braden Dietz.
Dietz gained a couple. So, John, what does that set up here? It'll be 3rd and about 4.
Gain down to the 24, 4th and 5.
Pardon me, 4th down and 5, yeah.
Okay, 4th and 5. And they're in decent field position, Joey. See if they elect to go for it. But
Dunlap did not attempt a field goal a week ago. The kicker for Dunlap is Nick Senick, name you might recognize from the soccer field. Dunlap will go for it here. 4th down and 6. Out of the gun, it's Dietz. Gore behind him. And rolling out, down to the flat. First pass of the evening, dropped. Ball came loose, but I believe Carson Roan was down. In any case, it's a turnover, and the Washington defense holds early.
That's a turnover regardless, but just for extra measure, Washington forcing a fumble there. And good defensive stop for Washington, especially with the field position Dunlap was in.
Washington
trying to make a statement right out the gate.
First down, Washington.
So Washington's offense on for the first time this evening. Starting quarterback is Nick Williams, leads his troops to battle. And we'll see what the Panthers offense does. Again, we mentioned that we expect to see kind of that ground and pound attack. Ground attack gets the first crack at things, up the middle. And the Dunlap defense holds. And that was a handoff to Cale Lambert. Lambert, a player we'll see a lot of today.
Made by 13 deep.
And I say today, we'll see him as the sun falls as well.
A gain of 1, 2nd and 9, Washington.
And we'll see what Washington's offense does here, 2nd and 9.
And Joey, I think it's going to be tough for either team, especially running that ball right up the gut, the size on both teams as far as Dunlap and Washington. Just strong defensive lines.
Skaggs and Lambert are in the backfield with Williams, and it goes to Lambert. Lambert tripped up, almost got to the 30-yard line.
For the Panthers.
And again, it's what we talked about, John, at the top of the show. We are seeing the running games for both teams. Dunlap did not go to the passing game until the last play of that last drive in which Washington stopped them.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter the yardage, doesn't matter the down. Both teams like to run the ball. We've seen that last possession with Dunlap, and we're seeing that now with Washington.
Williams with Lambert and Skaggs again. It's 3rd down and short, and it is a handoff to Lambert. Lambert looking. He's forced out of bounds at about the 35.
Number 1, Cale Lambert.
And we'll see where they spot him, but Lambert is the star of the Washington offensive show here early on.
Looked really close there, Joey.
Erickson. Gain on the play up to the 33
And they will move the chains. And he was actually, so he was out a little bit further than what I had thought I saw. He was marked down at the 33. I thought he got to about the 35. In any case, it is just enough for Washington's first down of the evening. And whereas Mitchell Gorfer Dunlap's going to go up the middle, kind of north-south, Cale Lambert, kind of that east-west running back. We've seen him break it out to the outside a couple of times now.
Yeah, it's so effective last week with 94 yards, 4 touchdowns.
It's another handoff there, and it's right up the middle. The Dunlap defense was on it. And as we talk about Lambert's performance last week, what a performance it was. Keyed Washington to the 34-14 win, 94 yards, 4 touchdowns. A Limestone team that, we wouldn't expect to be at the cream of the crop for the Mid-Illini Conference this season, but still, a good win that I think Washington thought they would perform that way, and they came out and certainly did just that.
Yeah.
Washington taking its time now. It'll be 2nd down and 9. Played about 2/3 of the first quarter, and up the middle. Nice gain for Washington, and credit that gain to Jack Lemus. Lemus, the 5'9" junior.
28, Graham Glover, and 14, Erickson.
First time we've called his name tonight, and it sets up
gain up to the 41, 3rd and 2.
A Washington 3rd and 2.
Filled in there for Cale Lambert. Did a nice job, really nice gain for Washington to get something going on this drive.
Washington's going to send 2 receivers out wide here, John, and a look that we've seen not a lot from Washington here on its inaugural drive. It's Trace Bullard and Isaac Mapson. Mapson nearest us. One step in is Bullard. And a handoff up the middle to Lemus. Dunlap on it that time. They spin him around. Did he gain enough? It's going to be close.
Lemus the carry again for the Panthers.
And they might have to measure that depending on where he gets the spot. It looks to me like it's a little bit short.
Looked awfully close.
Gain of 1, 4th and 1.
It'll be about a yard
Washington.
short. So, Joey, if you're Washington here, you pound it up the middle, try to get that 1st down.
I think you have to, and we'll see if this is Brock Skaggs' moment to shine. He's coming back into the game, and he's coming in with Tyler Casey. So it looks like Casey and Skaggs will rejoin the backfield. Lemus is back there as well. But, yeah, John, I think that's your best course of action on 4th and 1, right, is to pound it up the middle.
Yeah, it certainly is. See if they
bunch him in tight, handoff, and Williams goes to Lemus. He tries for the middle, and he is stopped. And that'll be a turnover on downs, so both defenses hold strong early. A drive for Dunlap ended in a turnover on downs. Washington's first drive meets the same fate.
No gain on
see what the
play.
Dunlap
Washington
offense can
will
do
turn the ball over on downs.
as it gets its second opportunity this evening. And Dunlap has a shorter field than, of course, they did when they started the game. Started their first drive at their own 30. Now they're in Washington territory at the 41.
Yeah, they're setting up Dunlap with some really nice field position here and see if they can convert this drive around after getting stopped last possession.
41 yards to drive for Dunlap. Cale Lambert is being looked at on the training table for Washington. Washington's running back did not play the last couple of plays that first drive. A flag comes in, probably a false start. We'll keep you updated on the Lambert story as we learn more.
Yeah, when Jack Lemus came in for Lambert, you kind of saw Lambert limping off the field a little bit, kind of hobbling on one of his ankle, so you hope he's all right, can check back in this game.
Dunlap actually got a timeout in, so no flag, and we'll take this break in the action to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. Also by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's UfteringPekin.com. By Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by our friend Jake Weston, State Farm in Washington, for all your insurance needs. 444-4441. Dunlap out of the timeout, has a 1st and 10, the first play of the Eagles' second drive of the evening. They have 41 yards to drive. Drive, as you see at the bottom of your screen, starts with 2:26 in the first quarter, and it is a pass out wide, second pass we've seen for the Eagles this evening.
Pass complete by the
and
Eagles.
The reception hauled in by Graham Glover. Graham Glover, who returned the opening kickoff for the Eagles. So, John, you know, we've seen pretty much exactly the game I think we thought we would both see. Couple of short gains. You pepper in a couple big gainers predominantly for Dunlap so far, but we still have no score, and the clock has run for a lot of the first quarter.
Yeah, much as you would expect. You know, a couple runs to Gore early, got stuffed, and then going to a couple of those screen passes there, and just can't beat that last tackler to break loose, but Dunlap looking to convert on this drive here.
Shotgun formation, and it will be a pass looking for Calhoun. Calhoun and Drew Lewis.
Pass attempt by the Eagles.
No flag on the play. There will be a flag on the play as I say that.
Very late.
Yeah, late flag, but it will be called. I believe that'll be pass interference on Washington's Drew Lewis. And that's a matchup we saw a lot of in basketball season, right? Gabe Calhoun, Drew Lewis going at it. This time, Gabe Calhoun is going to get the better of that battle. Draws the PI call. And outside of a couple of false starts, offsides calls, really just the one offside call early. That's the first flag we've seen for something that has happened during a play.
A 15-yard penalty moves the ball down.
Yeah, Lewis kind of caught in a tough spot there. Calhoun's already in the air. You kind of get stuck and caught with that flag. But,
John, that's not necessarily a bad penalty to take if you're Washington, because the alternative to that is perhaps a Gabe Calhoun touchdown, so it works out for both sides. Dunlap started run, but 3 passes in the Eagles' last 3 plays. We'll keep an eye on that. Under center is Dietz. Dietz, the senior. And that'll be a pitch back. Looking is Braden Orr, and Orr just past the 20.
24, Braden Orr
for the Eagles. So when it hasn't been Mitchell Gore, it's been Braden Orr. I like how that works with the last names, right? Gore and Orr.
Kind of rolls off the tongue there.
And both have had some success for Dunlap to this point.
Certainly have. And we're seeing that a lot more now, Joey, with Dunlap kind of running it to the outside, trying to get something, break loose there. But Washington's defense, credit to them, they're doing a really good job of holding this Dunlap offense.
It's Dunlap's first time in the red zone on this 2nd down and 5. Got close to the red zone on their opening drive, but we're stopped short. Here's Mitchell Gore. Gore, look at that. We've seen that a couple of times from Mitchell Gore. He will fight his yards after contact. A stat I'd like to see. He'll take that first hit, keep right on going, and that'll set up a 1st and goal.
Yeah, he gets those 2 or 3 extra yards after being hit. And it's one of those players, Joey, like you said, so tough to bring down. He just keeps powering his way through, and I'm sure Dunlap's hoping to punch one in here with Gore on this possession.
Timeout called here, and take this break in the action to tell you a little bit more about Mitchell Gore, 6 foot, 240-pound senior. And we'll talk things over. Larry Larson points out could be a clock malfunction here, so that will be the end of the quarter, pardon me. They won't run another play. So that's how the first quarter will end, a scoreless first quarter in
Final
Washington.
play of our first quarter
And the
after
quarter break
one
starts a
quarter of
little bit
action.
early. We'll take this break to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by
Dunlap 0,
Oftering West and Chevy
Washington 0.
Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Oftering Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. OfteringWeston.com. Tonight's coverage also brought to you by Oftering Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Oftering Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's OfteringPekin.com. And by Oftering Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy Country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. OfteringChevy.com. And by our pal Jake Weston in Washington, Illinois. Jake Weston State Farm for all of your insurance needs. Give Jake a ring at 309-444-4441. Jake Weston State Farm. Joey Wright, John Camosa, the entire Clutch Sports Media crew. Dunlap trying to punch it in. Mitchell Gore with 30 yards already this evening. See if he scores first. He's in the backfield with quarterback Braden Dietz. Keep an eye on Gabe Calhoun as well. He's spread out wide. And it will be a keeper for Dietz. He's looking. He's inside the 5. He's inside the end zone. And Dunlap strikes first. Touchdown Eagles. First play of the second quarter.
Got a couple blocks there, and great run from Dietz to break it loose on the outside. And Eagles strike first, Joey.
So it wasn't Mitchell Gore, it was Braden Dietz, and we saw Dietz keep it a couple of times last week as well against Pekin. An elusive quarterback. I would say you can't let him get much space, but he didn't need much space there.
No, he didn't. Broke a couple tackles and got some nice blocks.
Nick Senek on for the extra point, knocks it through. That was a 6-play, 41-yard drive for Dunlap. Longest play was a 15-yard run for Gore, but it was the 8-yard touchdown run from quarterback Braden Dietz that did the deed for Dunlap. And now Washington, the first team to play from behind this evening.
Yeah, playing from behind at home, and still seeing Cale Lambert on the sidelines, Joey. So, I'm sure Washington's going to look for some other guys to step up in his shoes. Hopefully he can get back in there and be healthy for Washington. But, yeah, you're down at home. You definitely want to strike back quick so you're not in a hole against Dunlap, not a team you want to be down to.
Certainly not. And Washington has a very healthy crowd here at Babcock Field tonight. Of course, some COVID mitigations, not quite the crowd we would normally see here. Washington, one of the best atmospheres in the Mid-Illini Conference. Of course, if you ask Dunlap about their crowd, they'd tell you the same thing. Two teams that know how to pack them in. About 20% capacity here this evening, but they'll need to rely on that 20% and that energy to come back. Dunlap to kick off. It'll be Senek again on the kickoff. Back deep for Washington. Got Manuel Thomas Borges and Jack Lemus. A couple of juniors back there to return, and Senek has the ability to keep it deep, so we'll see. Sent in the air, and it will be Lemus back to return. Returns from the 5-yard line. Looks for space. Has a little space. Jack Lemus with only Senek in front of him, and the kicker steps up to make the tackle. Low man always wins. Senek won that battle.
Joey, Senek doesn't hit him right there. I think Lemus breaks that one loose. This would have gave Washington a huge spark, but still a great return. Get it to the 50, and it's got to give Washington some momentum back.
Spotted a little bit short of the 50 at the 47, but still, that's almost a 45-yard return. And it was Dunlap, John, that benefited from a short field on their last drive. Washington, not quite in enemy territory yet, but you've got to figure they're kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah, certainly are. And see if they go to the air here or keep it on the ground.
Fake and a handoff up the middle. And stopped just a little bit short, Cade Bescheid. Cade Bescheid, another name you would recognize from the hardwood, the Washington Panthers basketball team that just capped off a 17-1 regular season. Mid-Illini Conference champions at 17-0 in conference play. It's the first time we've called Bescheid's name, kind of like his role in basketball. Came off the bench and did a little bit for Eric Schermerhorn's Panthers, but it's gains like that, John, that win ball games. A 4-yard gain sets up a 2nd and 6. Little motion on the Dunlap front, and it's Bescheid again, spun around and dropped.
Couldn't get anything going on that play. Dunlap's defense
Panthers.
did a good job of reading that one.
Brought down by 13 Dietz.
13 on 13 crime as Braden Dietz
A loss of 1
made
on
the tackle.
play,
And Braden
3rd
Dietz,
and
we'll talk
7,
about him again for
Washington.
Dunlap. Dunlap's quarterback just scored the first points of the game. He's been all over the place on defense. His name has been called a couple of times, making those tackles and stepping up. He is a linebacker for the Eagles, and the senior has stepped up, and he's probably been the player of the game to this point.
Yeah, a lot of two-way players, as you would see on both sides. And you got Gabe Calhoun there, one of your star receivers at the cornerback position. A lot of do-it-all players on both sides, Joey.
Stepping back is Williams. Williams is in trouble. He's hit hard and dropped at the 45. Nick Williams.
Quarterback is brought down for a sack on the play.
Sacked, and John, it looked like a design run.
56.
Looked like he was looking for some space, but the Dunlap defense stepped up in a big way.
Loss on the play.
Yeah, you have to think that, Joey, because he never really looked downfield. Didn't look like he had anything open down there. So kind of a QB sweep out to your right, and just nothing going there, met by 2 defenders.
It's Diego Pantoja Jimenez, I believe, that was in on that. Sets up a 4th and 11. Washington will punt. Calhoun's back to return. Sent deep, and it's Calhoun who's going to watch it bounce in front of him. Everyone will get out of the way, and it will be downed right at the 20-yard line.
By the Panthers, number 16, Liam Knight.
So that'll set up 80 yards to drive for Dunlap.
Rolls to a stop
9:21 left,
right
second
at
quarter.
the Eagle 20-yard line. First down.
And as we prepare for
Dunlap.
this 80-yard drive, if Dunlap could go the distance, we'll introduce you to the rest of our team. Joey Wright and John Camosa in with you on the call. In the booth, we've got Cody Roskins working stats for us, Larry Larson on our computer, Skip Schermerhorn is our spotter this evening, and Francisco Alonso helping out with social media. John Michael is on our game camera. Matt Harrington and Jacob Steinberg roaming the sidelines, getting some good footage for you that you'll see on social media as well, Twitter and Instagram. Clutch Sports Media crew is 9 strong this evening as Dunlap looks for a strong start to its 3rd drive. And a decent enough start for Logan Silzer, a name we've called a little bit this evening.
Tackle made by 23,
We've seen a couple of those so
Jack
far,
Loomis.
trying to get Silzer out there on the sweep.
A gain of 3 on the play, 2nd and
Silzer
7.
gained 3, so it'll be 2nd
Dunlap.
down and 7. Beautiful night in Washington, Babcock Field, temperature hovering right around 50 degrees. Gus Lucas is in for Washington. Calhoun spread out, far side for Dunlap. But instead it's a handoff right up the middle to Gore.
34, Mitchell Gore, the carry for
And
the
Mitchell
Eagles.
Gore continues to be
Tackle
not
made by
limited,
7,
but
Tim
limited there,
Malinowski.
not a gain of anything.
Just
Yeah,
kind of
for
getting
the
those short
24.
yardages, like you said last quarter, already up to
3rd
30
and
yards.
6.
Surpassed that now,
Dunlap.
but just getting 3-4 at a time. Not breaking anything loose, which Washington definitely won't want. So
Gained about a yard there, so it sets up 3rd and 6. John, do you go back to something like a slant route sort of thing here, or do you keep pounding it up the middle?
they might try another one of those kind of around plays, like a sweep to Silzer, or maybe try to go to the air. We haven't seen much of that downfield, so.
Receivers out wide are Brock Card and Gabe Calhoun. Low snap, and that'll be a quick sack. Braden Dietz hits the turf. Couldn't quite communicate there.
Brought down as soon as he picked it up by
and John, I don't think that's quite how they drew it up.
Now they had Calhoun going deep and Brock Card as well, but probably tried, was hoping for something downfield, but just a botch snap there and end up losing yards.
Sets up a punt here, and that'll be Gabe Calhoun punting for Dunlap. Drew Lewis to return for Washington. Low snap. Calhoun has little problem with it, and an end-over-end punt. It's going to bounce short. Lewis wants to return it. Lewis returns it just north of the 50-yard line, continues to stay on his feet to the 35, and he's brought down. An aggressive return from Drew Lewis.
That was a great heads-up play for Drew Lewis, like we've seen much of in the basketball season. Always doing the right thing and Joey, right there, he read that off the bounce perfectly. Got it, went straight through 2 defenders, and really nice gain for Washington. You got to like that kick return, or should I say punt return.
The 36-yard line, and there's Drew Lewis with the game-winning block. The Morton game, we look at Washington's basketball season. New quarterback in, it's Gus Lucas for Washington. And his first play is a handoff to Drew Lewis. Lewis wants the far side, has it to the 30, just north of the 30, and he's forced out of bounds.
On the carry for the Panthers.
And it is Gus Lucas in at quarterback for Washington.
Gus Lucas, star baseball player for the Panthers. Might see him go to the air a little bit, Joey, with that strong left arm of his, 6'3", 210-pound senior.
And it wouldn't surprise me, John, going off that point, to see Washington open it up a little bit. We see Drew Lewis on the sweep there, the last play. Washington's going to spread a couple out wide now, 2 wide to each side, and Lucas out of the gun. 2nd down and 3, and he will throw an interception on his first pass to the 25-yard line. It's picked off.
Pass attempt by the
There's a
Panthers
flag there,
is
Joey.
intercepted.
A couple of flags come in after, some extracurriculars. The ball hit the ground, I think, and it will stay with Dunlap. Perhaps a fumble there. I didn't see it hit the ground. Looked like he went down clean to me.
Marker after the play.
And the pass was intercepted. We'll see what the flag is. Washington thinks it was against Dunlap.
Foul against the Panthers.
Looks like a personal foul on Panthers.
Yep. And the offense will retreat.
Be a 15-yard
Washington personal foul for pass interference after the play.
And you got to think in a rival like this, tensions could get a little high, Joey. It's a little play that we saw there, fighting for the ball.
So that adds 15 yards post interception.
See if Washington's defense can try to get the ball back on this possession. Like I said, Joe, you certainly don't want Dunlap to take another score going into halftime.
Washington kicked it off, so the Eagles will kick off to start the second half. Dropped in the backfield by Orr, and Orr is then dropped by the Panthers defense.
Scooped up by the Eagles 24.
So it hit the ground.
He's brought down for a loss on the play.
That'll be a big loss for Dunlap relative to what we've seen this evening.
A loss of 2.
Loss of 2.
2nd and 12, Dunlap.
2nd and 12 coming up. So if you're Dunlap, Dunlap had that really successful drive with the short field. Not been able to get a ton going from their own side of the field, and it's not off to a great start. Speaking of this drive, see what they elect to do. Dietz will come out of the shotgun. He's got Gore behind him. 2 spread out far side, and the quarterback is Madden Burke. It's a handoff to Gore. So it's Burke in, not Dietz. Apologies, but it is a nice gain for Mitchell Gore, pending the flag.
And Joey, and as equally, as talented as these teams are on offense, he's equally talented on defense. So you pair them head-to-head like this, expect some big stops, some tackles for losses, and, we've seen a lot of that so far. Low-scoring game to start.
Penalty will move the ball back to
penalty against Dunlap, and a big penalty at that. 15-yard penalty will set up a 2nd down and 27.
24, Dunlap.
2nd down and 24 from the 27, pardon me, but still about the same idea here. Same formation for Dunlap. 3 receivers spread out, and Burke looking, tried to keep it himself. Brought down at the 25, gained a yard.
Tried to sell the fake there, and Washington read right through it.
65.
John, do you have anything in the playbook for a 3rd down and very long?
3rd and 26. Joey, they've only really went to the air once, deep. So I think you got to try to air it out there. Otherwise, you're looking at a punt.
Go back a couple plays. They sent Brock Card and Gabe Calhoun deep. First time, as you said, that they had tried that in this one. Under 5 minutes to play. And we will have a timeout called. Play clock was winding down, and That'll be charged to Dunlap.
We have a timeout, Dunlap.
See, before that timeout, Joey, they were looking to put 3 out to the right and one slot receiver on their left. So
see if that's what they come back to. The play clock was winding down, and we'll wind up. A word for our sponsors, starting with Uftring Weston, Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. Also by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers, and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's UfteringPekin.com. By Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by our friend Jake Weston. Jake Weston State Farm in Washington, Illinois. That's 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. And out of the break, out of the Dunlap timeout, they face a 3rd down and 26. Calhoun in motion. Burke the quarterback. And Washington has 4 defensive backs deep. Burke dropping back to pass. He's going to air it out for Calhoun. Calhoun gets up, and did he catch it? Yes, he did at the 40-yard line.
What a catch. Joe, you just said they were probably looking for something deep there, and you send your most athletic player out there to go up and get it. And man, came down with that through 2 defenders on him. Great catch by Calhoun. Sets up Dunlap with great field position.
Landed flat on his back, it looked like. What a play from Calhoun. Calhoun, who has come off a couple of back surgeries himself, makes the play. He's all right. He's staying in, of course. And that's a deflating play for Washington. You've got a 3rd and 26, a 3rd and very long, and you give up a chunk play. And they had Calhoun covered.
Yeah, they did. I mean, but it just speaks volumes of the talent of Gabe Calhoun.
Burke, a handoff to Gore, and the Panthers step up that time. And now it goes back to coaching a little bit, right? Daryl Crouch for Washington and Brett Cazalet for Dunlap. If you're Dunlap, it's how do you keep the momentum going after a big play like that? And if you're Washington, you'll have that happen over the course of a game. You've got to bounce back. They bounce back there, of course. 2nd down and 7 coming up.
And you're looking at that clock too, Joey, and you're at 3:43. Gives Dunlap a chance to kind of wind down a little bit of that and try to get back in position to score. If you're Washington, obviously you want to try to eliminate that, but
Burke hands off to Gore, 2nd down and 7. Gore is going to have enough for the 1st down at least. Couldn't quite get it to the 20-yard line, but a very nice carry and a very nice gain for Mitchell Gore. Who else for Dunlap? And there will be a flag, though, and that'll come back. It's a holding call against Dunlap. Flag that is going to march him back a ways. So we talk about deflating plays. Now Dunlap has to bounce back from a big flag there to boot.
10 yards from the spot of the foul, moves the ball.
And Joey, kind of the first time we've really seen Gore break it loose from the outside. Seen them try to push it up the middle with him quite a bit, but when he gets a couple blocks and gets outside, you see that speed from Gore. He really gets going. Fortunately for them, Dunlap just couldn't catch a break there.
That's what makes him such a tough running back to bring down, is that he can do so much well. He's still in the backfield with Madden Burke, but it's Calhoun near us. 2 receivers out wide for the Eagles as well, far side. 2nd down and 17. Gore gets the carry. Fought through the initial hit there, John. I believe that was Payne Smith who got in and hit him first. Stayed up, but didn't get much more beyond that.
And they're going to try to want to eliminate Dunlap's run game here. We're looking at another long 3rd down, Joey, after seeing Calhoun convert that 3rd and 26, see if they elect to go to the air again. Wouldn't be a bad option to send Calhoun out there deep.
Yeah, 3rd down and 16. It worked for him last time on 3rd and 25. Burke, the quarterback, has Calhoun out far side. Calhoun out there along with Graham Glover. It's Brock Card and Kwan Irby in near, and a timeout called by Dunlap. Dunlap going through those timeouts. And probably a good timeout there, John, with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the third, because a score before the halftime break would be big. Washington does have the ball to start the second half, so you can build that lead before they get the built-in chance out of the half. Of course, that's gonna behoove them.
Yeah, probably, take a timeout just to give yourself the best possible play you can have out there, because you give Washington, let's say they make a stop here and get the ball back with 2 minutes. It's a lot of clock for the Panthers. You see how quick they can get up and down the field. So I think Dunlap's going to try to hopefully convert here and then maybe punch in another score.
Got a little work to do. Third down and 16. But again, if you're just joining us, Dunlap converted a third down and 26 to keep this drive alive a couple of moments ago on a deep pass. A nice find to Gabe Calhoun. Calhoun out wide. Nearest our camera is Card and Glover. And Burke immediately looking for Calhoun. High pass, and Calhoun can't come down with it, so that'll set up fourth down and 16. Calhoun and Gore for Dunlap have combined for 80% of Dunlap's offensive yards. Cody Roskin's a great stat there, keeping stats for us this evening. And Dunlap has, again, not had an incredibly diverse offense, John, but they haven't needed one. They have a lead. A game that, as you can see, has only seen 7 points total scoring.
Yeah, much as we'd expect, kind of before this game started, knew we were going to see a lot of Gore, a lot of Calhoun. Certainly what we've got.
Flag comes in as Calhoun sends it deep. Drew Lewis was back to return for Washington. That is sent out of bounds
By the Eagles,
inside the red zone, but a flag came in. Two flags came in actually immediately on the snap.
Penalty markers on the play.
Wait and see what those could be. Perhaps offsides against Washington and a false
Penalty
start
is
against
illegal
Dunlap. So I'm surprised,
formation
they let that play run through.
The Eagles.
And Washington will have a chance here, John. You run the 2-minute drill, 2:03 to play in the second.
Washington will decline the penalty. Ball spotted at the
Panthers, of course,
17-yard
declined
line.
the penalty. And, the false start is normally they'll blow that dead as soon as they see it. So that must have been just right at the snap.
Yeah. Well, Joe, you got 2:03 left in this first half, and Washington's got a ways to go. See if they can get something going on this drive.
Drive will start at the 17-yard line. See if the Panthers can get anything going. 83 yards to pay dirt.
Nick Williams back in at quarterback.
And Williams
23,
hands
Jack
off
Lemus, the
to
carry for
Lemus.
the Panthers.
Lemus has been a popular option for Washington thus far, so Washington not
Moore and
incredibly
Chip
aggressive
on
here
the stop.
to start the drive.
A gain of 2, 2nd and 8.
And the clock
Washington.
runs, most importantly. And two schools of thought, John, of course. You can be kind of aggressive here to start things off, but a couple of incomplete passes, of course, clock stops. You give Dunlap a chance, so perhaps Washington just running it down, waiting to take those chances. It's Williams with 4 wide receivers. He's going to go curl route and a find to Isaac Mapson. And Mapson has enough for the first down.
Williamson, number 83, Isaac
And first
Mapson.
downs, John, stop the clock for just enough time to let the downs get reset. So
Yeah, and really nice play there for Washington to kind of pick up some extra yardage, because to your point, Joey, they're good on the ground and good through the air, but you don't want to give Dunlap a chance to have Nick Senek kick it in for you, because that soccer star, he's got a leg on him. So give your Washington, just drive it up as far as you possibly can.
quarterback keeper for Nick Williams. Flag comes in as Williams finds a little bit of space. He had enough for the first down,
Number 4, Nick Williams.
but the flag in the backfield, and that'll be a
There is
hold
a penalty
against the
marker on
Panthers.
play.
See who the guilty party was
Signal
on
is
the hold,
holding
but much like we
against
saw
the
with
Panthers.
Dunlap a couple of minutes ago, John, those holds were racing big runs. It was a big run for Gore, the play I'm referring to, and a run from Williams wiped out.
Penalty will be 10 yards from the spot of the foul.
Probably a
Moves
bigger
the ball
penalty to
back
take
the
there for
23
Washington.
yard
Yeah,
line.
tough one to take back.
Remains first
Really nice
down,
run by
1st and
Nick Williams, but
16, Washington.
chance to restart here. And Joey, not a whole lot of time. 53 seconds left in this second quarter.
18 yards for the first down. It's second down. Dunlap, a little bit of motion there on the defensive front. Williams drops back to pass, looks, and he finds his man, finds Brock Pollitt. Pollitt dropped at the 30. Clock running north of 30 seconds. Washington back to the line.
Gain to the 31.
You can tell the Panthers moving with an increased sense of urgency. Williams still in the shotgun. He's got 2 receivers out wide. One, as you can see, in tight towards us. 15 seconds left as Williams drops back. Williams surveys, looks for space, looking for Drew Lewis, but the pass was high. And John, I've heard someone below us keep screaming hook and ladder. You probably wouldn't want to bring that out in the first half, and Washington probably doesn't have a ton of options left to drive the field in 10 seconds.
No, I don't know if you want to look for that quite yet. It's only the second quarter. But, Joey, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go to the air here one more time. You only got 9 seconds left. Probably gives them just one look.
And you think maybe you get a quick first down and step out of bounds. You know, that sets you up for 50, 40 yards to drive. Maybe you throw something up deep and see what happens. Gus Lucas, quarterback with a strong arm, as well as Williams, who's in the game now. You've got a couple options if you're Washington. Man in motion, it was Lewis, and a keeper. Williams spinning, and he's dropped at the 30-yard line. Clock continues to wind down. Would have been fourth down, but instead the half ends. Washington will have the ball to start the second half, but they'll go into the locker room facing a 7-point deficit. The Dunlap Eagles control the first half, a 7-0 ball game. The game we thought we would see. We didn't think we'd see a lot of scoring. Maybe it's played out to an extreme, a 7-0 game. But Dunlap has played the better first half, John.
Yeah, Dunlap's defense has been looking really good so far, kind of limiting Washington on their runs. And another story that we could kind of touch on, Joey, player that we talked so much about before this game started, Cale Lambert, and we didn't see him for an entire quarter. Only saw him for a brief couple minutes in the first quarter after that injury, so not sure if he'll be back in this game at all. But Joey, if he's out, that's a big blow for Washington.
Absolutely would be a big blow for the Panthers. And we saw Dunlap last week battle the loss of Braden Dietz. Dietz is playing tonight, but took a big shot in the third quarter. Kind of sent the Dunlap offense scrambling. They were able to recover and find kind of that next man up mentality. And pending, and of course we don't have an update on Cale Lambert, went down with that early injury. As John said, didn't play much in the first half, but should we not see him in the second half, who do you think steps up? Is that Brock Skaggs? Is it Lemus has had a big game? Jack Lemus, that would be for Washington. You know, who are we kind of looking for Washington in that second half?
Yeah, Lemus, and I think you'll see a lot more of Drew Lewis, whether it be through the air or get him on a couple sweeps, but definitely one of the more athletic players on this Washington team. And we saw quite a bit of him, you know, after Lambert went down, so might see him and Lemus kind of trade roles there in the second half, Joey.
Certainly would. And you look at the total yardage, it tells the tale. 115 total yards for Dunlap, just 50 for Washington. And penalties have bitten both teams. You know, both teams have had drives and plays that have gone for big gains, but they stall out. And they haven't had a ton going on. So we'll see if these teams can clean it up. We'll take a quick break here for halftime. And that is where we will leave it for you with 13:25 left in the halftime break. You can see that countdown to the second half on the bottom of your screen. Clutch Sports Media live from Washington tonight, where Dunlap has a 7-0 lead on the Washington Panthers. Second half coming up in just a little bit. Stay with us. From Babcock Field on the campus of Washington Community High School in Washington, Illinois, Clutch Sports Media welcomes you back into a presentation of Mid-Illini Conference football. The 1-0 Washington Panthers trailing the 1-0 Dunlap Eagles 7-0. Entering the second half, Joey Wright, John Camosa, and the entire Clutch Sports Media crew glad to be in with you this evening. Take a look at the total yards real quick, John. 115 for Dunlap, just 45 for Washington. Gabe Calhoun leads all skill players with 75 yards, leads all players total, that is, with 75 yards. Braden Dietz with the only touchdown to this point. That was a 10-yard carry for the Eagles. That came first play of the second quarter, 11:54 on the clock, and both teams have combined for 70-plus penalty yards. Penalties have been a big story in this first half.
Certainly have. And, Joey, one thing that we'll touch on that we didn't really get a chance to talk about too much in the first half is special teams, which was big for Washington. You talk about that one punt return and kick return were stopped by just one tackle that they easily could have broke loose. Two big plays that could potentially come down as, game-saving plays for Dunlap if the score holds. But, yeah, Washington's obviously going to want to pick it up a little bit more on the offensive end. And it's a tough task, Joey, when you're facing such a good defense in Dunlap's. But we'll see if they can get something going here in the second half.
It was Nick Senek with a big tackle on one of those plays that prevented a Washington touchdown. Dunlap's kicker stepping up. We'll take this time to remind you, as we get set to start the second half, that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. Also by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Visit UfteringPekin.com. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy Country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. Visit UfteringChevy.com. And, of course, by our friend Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all of your insurance needs, give Jake Weston a call at 309-444-4441. Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Babcock Field in Washington, the site of tonight's game. About 4 minutes until the start of the second half. This clock that you see at the bottom of your screen will expire, and then a 3-minute warm-up period will follow. And take this time to remind you also to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. Also our social media channels and pages. Of course, our YouTube channel and our Twitter is Clutch Sports IL, Clutch Sports Media on Instagram and on Facebook. Drop a subscribe, hit us with a like. If you've ever watched a YouTube video, you probably know the spiel. Glad to have you with us on ClutchSportsIL.com this evening. And a word for our entire crew. Our crew is 9 strong tonight. I'm Joey Wright with John Camosa. In the booth with us, Larry Larson at the controls of our computer, and Cody Roskins, our statistician. Skip Schermerhorn is our spotter this evening. We've also got in the field Jacob Steinberg, Matt Harrington, John Camosa, and Francisco Alonso. Jacob Steinberg, along with Matt and Francisco, running our social medias this evening, and John Michael, the best game camera operator in the business, is running our game cam. Also has a big hand in setting up our scoreboard camera that you see, running the clock. So that's our Clutch Sports Media crew. Glad to have you along for the ride tonight. And John, as we double back towards the game, what kind of second half do you think we're going to see? Because we had talked before the game leading up to this one, and we probably sound like broken records. Didn't think we'd see a ton of scoring. We thought we'd saw more running than passing, and we certainly have been correct on both accounts, but maybe do a bit more of an extreme than we thought.
I just have a feeling, Joey, we're going to see a little bit more offense. I feel like both teams might have a chance to kind of break loose a little bit. Through the years, these Washington Dunlap games have usually been in the 20s. I don't foresee Dunlap holding Washington scoreless. I'd certainly be impressed if they did that. I think a lot of viewers at home would be impressed as well. But, I think we're going to see some offense. Washington get some stuff going here, especially like we said, if Cale Lambert doesn't return. I think you see Drew Lewis get going, Jack Lemus. They got a lot of different weapons, Joey, that they can turn to. And if you're Dunlap, you're going to keep running Gore and keep going to Calhoun. That's been their 1-2 punch so far.
And Washington is going to have a chance, John, to make an impact right out of the gates. They'll have the second half kickoff, and we saw what we talked about a moment ago as we came back from break. Drew Lewis, it was a punt return earlier, not quite a kickoff return, but still that same special teams area. He almost returned one of those for a touchdown, was dropped by Nick Senek, the punter for Dunlap. But, nevertheless, or was that on a kickoff?
I believe it was on a kickoff, yeah. But like you said, Joey, I mean, it's critical for Washington in this opening drive to gain some momentum. They get the ball back here. They could potentially run it down the field and get a score quick. I think that'd add a lot of momentum back to Washington, kind of been sitting in limbo right now, haven't found the end zone. See what they can do on this opening drive. But I think they probably got a couple different tricks up their sleeve. Darryl Crouch usually's got his team ready after being down. But I think we're going to see, a lot of Drew Lewis, Jack Lemus going to kind of take on the workload here in the second half.
Back to return the kickoff. So it won't be Drew Lewis back to return. It'll be Manuel Thomas, Borges, and Jack Lemus.
Dunlap will kick off. Washington.
So we'll see. Lewis is back there as well, but historically Senek has been able to send it deep enough to Borges or Lemus. So we'll see how it plays out. Short kick, you got to watch Lewis, of course. And with it being high school football, you got to watch. The up men have to pay attention. You got to watch for that onside kick.
I was going to say, Senek, as good a kicker as he is, probably send one over Lewis's head, but you never know.
I certainly would want to if I was him. I wouldn't want to put it in his hands,
No,
but
you wouldn't.
We saw Lemus have a nice return earlier as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Senek approaches this for Dunlap. Second half, just about to get underway. Glad you're with us on ClutchSportsIL.com as Senek sends it deep, a line drive. Lemus will field it after some initial trouble. Fields it about the 10-yard line. Looks for space to the 30. Just past the 30, and that's where the Washington offense will set up shop for the first drive of the second half. Andrew Grover on the tackle for Dunlap.
17, Andrew Grover, and 63, Ian
Grover
Stahl
stepping up,
on
the 5'11 junior.
Return out to the 31-yard line.
And John, we've seen Washington kind of go, two tempos. A lot of time they've been slow and methodical. They've upped the tempo when they've had to. Would you expect to see kind of a slow, methodical start to this drive?
Well, we'll see. I think it could be similar to that closing, drive that they had in the second half, or I should say in the first half.
Nick Williams back in at quarterback. He played the last drive as well for Washington. Washington's starting quarterback was replaced by Gus Lucas for a series. Gus Lucas threw an interception. Lemus the carry, and Ryan Shook the stop.
And 9, Washington.
Yeah, Joey, obviously a lot of time, first or second half just started, the third quarter. You might see Washington, if they continue to kind of sit in this phase of being down late in the game, that they'd kind of break out of that run routine and try to air it out, maybe outside the norm a little bit. But you got talented receivers like Isaac Mapson out there.
Second down and 9. Lemus the handoff. Looked like a bit of an option play there, John, as Williams followed him. Burke on the stop. Burke has played a couple of series at quarterback for Dunlap tonight. Madden Burke, that is.
Another gain of 1, 3rd and 8.
Third down and 8 coming up. So what do you do here on 3rd and 8? Do you go? I wouldn't be shocked myself to see Washington pass, but when you've got talent like you do in Lemus, it's going to go north-south.
Don't be surprised to see the run, though, either. It could look like they might be out of the gun.
They will come out of the gun. 5 wide. Williams in the backfield. 3rd down and 7. The snap. He's in trouble. He's going to be brought down. That's going to be a big loss for Washington on 4th down. Williams takes a big sack right there, and it's Braden Dietz, the other quarterback for Dunlap, stepping up. So Dunlap's quarterback's posing problems for Washington. So the Panthers' first drive of the second half.
4th and long, Washington.
Dunlap's defense getting back there real quick with Dietz. Not a lot of blocking up front. They kind of blew right past there, Joey, and a chance to get the ball back and pick up some nice field position if they can get a return. Or
Brock Pollitt will punt. Gabe Calhoun back deep to return for Dunlap. He'll watch that sail over his head and He would have had to move a good ways to get that anyways.
Punt by
Down
the
to the
Panthers number 16.
38-yard line.
Travels
So
across
62
midfield
yards in front of Dunlap as the Eagles look to
and is down
double their
at the
lead.
38
Would be a pretty good
line.
outcome if you are
First down,
on the
Dunlap.
side of Dunlap. But of course, John, we didn't see, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, a lot of scoring in that first half. So easier said than done.
And Joey, kind of touching on Washington, or I should say Dunlap here. You're going to see that same type of thing, maybe the run, and a little bit of pass, but I think they'll definitely try to get Mitchell Gore going quite a bit here.
Dunlap entering the second half with 115 yards of offense. Dietz, the quarterback, handoff up the middle, and Gore with a nice gain on first down.
The carry for the Eagles. Tackled by
We would
7
expect to call
Malinowski.
Mitchell Gore's name quite a bit through the balance of this one.
A gain of
Certainly
4
would.
on the play, 2nd and 6. Dunlap.
It's up a 2nd and 6. You know, John, we talk about Dunlap's lead, but it certainly feels to me at least like, you know, Dunlap certainly can't rest on its laurels because with only a 7-point lead and so much time to play, you know, it's basically a tied ball game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anything could change in a blink of an eye. You have so much talent on Washington's side, but if you're Dunlap, you can't feel comfortable with the 7-0 lead.
Certainly not. Gore gets the handoff again.
34 Gore, the
And
carry
a similar
again
play,
for the
gained a
Eagles.
couple, but that Washington front has limited
Gain on the
Gore
play
in
to
large
the
part tonight. And Gore has had a
44-yard line.
nice evening. He's had a nice game, but he's not had
3rd
any
and 3, Dunlap.
big, significant chunk plays. Certainly no scoring plays. Braden Dietz has the lone Dunlap touchdown. So I would say Washington's defense has limited him pretty well.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. Like, you know, except for that one play that he had, and then it ended up getting called back on a holding call. It's the first time he really broke loose. You know, there hadn't been too much of letting Gore just get downfield and run all over you. It's just been more ground and pound up the middle for short yardage.
3rd down and 4. Dietz under center. Will keep it himself. He's wrapped up.
Quarterback
Got
keeper
right
by
back to where he
13,
started.
Braden Dietz.
Timmy Malinowski, pardon me, on the
No
stop.
gain on the play by number 7, Timmy Malinowski.
And Malinowski
4th and 3.
with a big
Dunlap.
stop. Textbook tackle, too. Grabbed him by the jersey and took him down. Didn't give him much chance to escape. Drew Lewis back deep to return for Washington. Calhoun to punt.
And Joey, these are these type of plays right here. You know, Drew Lewis deep, if he can get a return, kind of create his own look here.
Field's just north of the 30-yard line. Here's Lewis. Lewis tries to reverse field, and he's thrown down.
Number 9,
Right
Drew
around the
Lewis,
35.
The punt return for the Panthers.
So not quite the explosive punt return that Washington was looking
Return
for,
out
but
to
still
the
a nice gain.
36-yard
Charles
line.
Baker
First down,
on the
Washington.
stop. And that'll set up Washington with an opportunity. And, John, that last drive, the Dunlap drive, that is, worked out just like Washington needed to. They got the quick stop, the quick 3 and out. An offense, though, that just has not had the opportunity to mount a ton of momentum tonight.
And it's been a back and forth, Joey. It's Washington's defense holding and kind of waiting on the offense to, hey, we're doing our part. Need you to come in and score and tie this ball game up.
Pass attempt by
Washington's
the Panthers
defense
falls
doing a really good
incomplete.
job of
Intended
keeping them
for
right in this game.
83 Mapson.
Pass was
2nd
intended there
and
for Isaac
10,
Mapson. Williams
Washington.
started the drive with a pass, and Gabe Calhoun was there to break it up.
Heard his name a lot on both sides, Joey. He's been explosive on offense, doing a lot on defense as well.
And he was right in there with Isaac Mapson, of course, another basketball player for Washington. Williams in the shotgun. Washington being a little more aggressive. It's out to Drew Lewis, and Lewis wrapped up and brought
Pass
down
complete
by
Panthers,
Kyle
Williams
Erickson.
To Lewis.
Kyle
Brought
Erickson
down
was on that from the
immediately
start.
for What will be a loss
Yeah,
of
Dunlap's
1 on the
defense did a
play.
really nice job on that play, Joey, and then
14
going back to
Erickson with the
Washington's
stop.
previous
3rd
possession.
and 11,
Deetz picking up that
Washington.
quarterback sack, but they're reading these plays really well.
So after a run-centric start to the game and a start to the half for Washington, they've opened the second half with 2 passes. Jack Lemus is in the backfield with Nick Williams here, but they have 4 wide receivers. And it will be another pass. Williams drops back, looks out, and over the middle, nearly intercepted. It was tipped by Trace Bullard.
By the Panthers falls incomplete.
Falls to the turf.
Intended for 3, Bullard.
Bullard was in the starting lineup for Washington, started at wide receiver, but we have not called his name a ton tonight. I believe that was his first or second target, that is, of the evening.
Yeah, Joey, and on that overthrow, you saw Gabe Calhoun kind of smacking the turf. I feel like he didn't lose his footing there. He thought he could have had a pick. Certainly looked that way.
Would have been the second turnover of the game and the second to result in a Washington, or from an interception from Washington, pardon me. Calhoun back to return. He won't return, and this is a good punt. Gets a Washington bounce inside the 25, rolls to the 23, and Bullard will down it.
Panthers 16, Liam Knight.
A great punt from Liam Knight.
Across midfield and gets a nice roll.
Yeah, you got to be happy with that one if you're Washington.
Line.
Put Dunlap as far as you can back there, and defense hoping to come away with another big stop, give that offense a chance.
Flips the field, and it is a Washington defense that comes in hot. A big stop and a 3 and out on Dunlap's first drive of the half. And just looking at the Dunlap personnel here.
It looks to be on the sidelines. Joey, we could see Cale Lambert, sweatpants with crutches. So obviously not going to return to this game. Just hope he can come back some point in this season. But
not a good sign for Washington.
Not a good sign.
21, Logan Silzer with
Silzer on the carry.
The Eagles.
And he's brought down. And, yep, Skip Schermerhorn, our spotter, was quick to point that out. And that's a big loss for Washington. Lambert had 4 touchdowns in Washington's win at Limestone last week, 94 yards in that one. It's a big loss for the Panthers. They've missed him. He went down early, first couple of plays of the game. Offensive plays, that would be for Washington. So we'll see if they can recover. Lambert in sweatpants. All but done tonight. 2 wide receivers for Dunlap here, but instead it will go to Gore, and Washington's defense broke through the wall. And a quick stop there.
Carry for the Eagles.
Gore lost yards on that, I believe. Indeed, a loss of 3. It'll bring up 3rd down and 8.
Loss on the play back to the 25.
Payne Smith on the stop.
8,
Smith
Dunlap.
comes out of the game now. Jacob Beam comes in. And John, we've seen a couple of these tonight, a big 3rd down. Coming into the game, not into the game, but returning from the huddle with the play is Dietz.
You got Gabe Calhoun out there again, you know, another guy that can kind of go one-on-one with you and go up and get it. So see if Washington...
Oh, that'll be a false start against the Eagles in all likelihood. Looked like jumping first was Sam Morgan.
Against the Eagles.
Morgan, the sophomore, jumps early.
5-yard penalty. It'll remain.
And that will back him up. And John, right before that, that was a good observation. It was Calhoun and Brock Card out wide for Dunlap. When they ran that set earlier, it was on a 3rd down as well. They both went long, and Dietz took a quick sack. Card is going to come out now, and in to replace him is Logan Silzer. Dietz returns with the play, but Dunlap has shown its hand before. They've gone deep. They're going to bunch it in wide now, and Calhoun's in motion. We're going to have a timeout here. There's a lot going on there, and
before the
Dunlap's going to take it.
We have a timeout. Dunlap.
And you know, Joey, we usually see an in-motion play right there, but Gabe Calhoun looked like he was scrambling just to get to the outside, so clearly they weren't set as they wanted to be.
They certainly weren't. We'll see if they can get set after this break, and we'll take this break to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. By Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's UfteringPekin.com. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country. For selection, savings, and more for your trade, UfteringChevy.com. and by Jake Weston
Dunlap
State
will
Farm
have third
in Washington,
and
Illinois. For all your
13
insurance needs,
out
call
of the
Jake Weston
timeout.
at 309-444-4441. Out of the break, third down and long, third down and 13. Calhoun out wide for Dunlap. Dietz will keep it himself. Dietz looking for the far side, but he's wrapped up and brought down, forced
Quarterback
out of
keeper
bounds,
by 13,
right around the line of scrimmage.
Braden Dietz.
And Cade Bescheid on the
Tackle made
stop.
by 23, Lemus.
That'd be
Or
Lemus.
Lemus, pardon me. Bescheid near the play as well.
Gain up to the 22, fourth
And Jack
and
Lemus has
11,
continued to make a big impact.
Dunlap.
Seen a lot of that tonight, Joey. I mean, really good offensive players both ways, stepping up on the defensive end.
Lemus is now back to return the punt along with Drew Lewis. Calhoun to punt for Dunlap. So keep an eye on this. 2 punt returners for Washington. First time we've seen this tonight. Lemus watches it bounce in front of him. Dunlap will down it after some hesitation. And a chippy
Punt
couple
by
of
the
plays
Eagles,
around the
travels
ball.
across midfield
Couple
and
players
rolls
tangle,
to
no
a
flags
stop
on the play. Malinowski was
at
going
the
at it with,
Panther 41-yard
looked like
line.
Charles Baker, and that was
First
not the only
down, Washington.
battle, but you'll see those over the course of a football game, John. Of course, not to say that anyone was acting out. It's a physical game, and especially a game like this where we haven't seen a lot of scoring, you know, you're going to get those sorts of chippy interactions. The last, what do we got, just over 15 minutes, just under 16 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, that should come as no surprise.
Washington out. Third time the Panthers have possessed the ball in this half. Gus Lucas is back into the game at quarterback for Washington. He has 4 wide receivers. Mapson in the slot. And Lucas dropping back to pass. Wants a deep option, has nothing, is going to take it himself. Gets past the line of scrimmage. And the first man to down him is
Quarterback
Dietz.
scramble by number 18,
The
Gus
quarterback
Lucas.
brings down the quarterback again.
Tackle made by 13, Dietz.
And that'll set up second and
A
long.
gain of 3 on the run. Second and 7.
Gus Lucas, you know, we've talked about his
Washington.
strong arm. We've talked about his ability playing baseball, one of the best players in the area. You kind of think, okay, when he comes in, you're going to look for the deep ball. Looked like that's what he was looking for there, but shows he's not afraid to take it himself.
Yeah, and clearly he's got some wheels on him too there, Joey, and not just your typical pocket passer.
Has a man in the backfield with him, and it will be an option. That goes back to Lemus. Lemus stayed up after a contact,
Carried
but he's
by
wrapped
the
up and brought
Panthers,
down.
23, Jack Lemus.
That sets up third and very
Tackle by
manageable. And
34,
John Washington has
Gore.
kind of migrated away from the
Gain
run.
up to
That was an
the
option run,
46,
so
third and
make an exception
5,
there. But they've
Washington.
come out of the gun more. They've really migrated towards the pass, especially here the last 2 drives. The last 2 drives they've come out with here in the second half.
I think you got to kind of try to expand all options against this Dunlap defense and just find out what works, because right now Dunlap's just doing a really good job of eliminating anything that Washington tries to get going.
See if this is a passing situation for Washington. Lucas. Oh, and the hard count. That looked like a false start against the
Penalty marker
Panthers.
before the snap.
And that ought to
False
back the
start
Panthers
against
up
the
5
Panthers.
yards.
5-yard penalty
It will, and
will make it third.
you can
and
tell, John, that
10.
Lucas was trying to get Dunlap to jump with a hard count. And I believe that was Seth Boswell that jumped for Washington. It was. Seth Boswell, the 5'10 senior.
Joe, you talked about that passing game. You're at a 3rd and 10 situation now, and might see Lucas go to the air here again.
3rd down and 10. Lucas in the backfield with Lemus. Lemus blocks. He looks over the middle, and that pass was intended for Trace
Pass
Bullard.
attempt
Bullard was open.
By the Panthers falls
Bullard has
incomplete.
gotten a couple of those looks in the second half.
Thrown
Couldn't
in
quite
the
connect. Looked like it
direction
was a
of
little
3
behind him.
Bullard. 4th and 10, Washington.
Had him on the right route, just like you said, Joey threw it a little bit behind him.
That sets up an interesting situation again with Calhoun back to return. Calhoun has not been particularly aggressive in regard to returning punts, but that's because oftentimes it's not kicked right at him.
Certainly a player you don't really want to kick it right to either.
Liam Knight had a very nice punt his last time out. And that's going to take another Washington bounce. Those end-over-end punts really favoring Liam Knight and the Panthers.
Punt by the Panthers,
that rolled between the 26 and 27. Official spot looks like right at the 27.
27-yard line. First down, Dunlap.
So it's been all defense in this second half. If you're just joining us, 7-0 Dunlap, as you see at the bottom of your screen. Total yards in the second half, 10 for Dunlap, and Washington has lost 3. So it has been all defense in the second half. Negative offense for Washington. That's got to be tough to say, John. If you're Washington, you've held Dunlap to 10 yards, but the Dunlap defense has still stepped up and statistically had the better half. First play goes to Orr for Dunlap. And Orr didn't get a whole lot. Stagnated and brought down by Jonathan Kopinski.
No gain on the play.
For no gain.
And 10.
That keeps Dunlap's yardage total for the half at 10.
Seen an all-out defensive battle so far.
And, you know, you don't have the fireworks that you might be accustomed to seeing in a football game in 2021, but that's not to say this has been a bad game. Very compelling. It's that old-school, defensive-minded approach, and that's what you certainly have with the Washington Panthers and head coach Darryl Crouch. Dietz dropping back for Dunlap. Stayed on his feet, but he was brought down hard.
He's brought down for a sack
Nolan Brown on the stop.
Tripped up by 52, Nolan
Brown broke through the offensive line, and that gets Washington's defense closer to Dunlap's total there. When we go back to the total yardage, those have been the kind of plays, John, that we've seen all throughout the game and really specifically through the second half.
Yeah, we've seen them on both sides of the ball. You know, both defensive lines doing a really good job of getting back there to the quarterback and limiting any yardage that they're trying to gain. But credit to Washington's defense, Joey. They're doing a really good job of just keeping them right here in this game. And comes down to this fourth quarter, you know, anything could happen.
Play clock winding down. Burke is in at quarterback. He hands it off to Gore. Gore did not get back to the original line of scrimmage. And owing to the quick game we've seen, the quarter is almost over. It will end now. Jonathan Kopinski on the stop. And that's how the third quarter will end.
It'll bring up
a quick game tonight in Washington. A lot of runs, a lot of running clock.
Our third quarter. After 3 quarters,
and we are heading to the fourth quarter. 12 minutes to play
0
in Washington.
And really nice effort there on Kopinski's part, you know, in for 2 tackles there in that drive.
Take this break to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Oftring, Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Oftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit OfteringWeston.com today. By Oftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Oftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. OfteringPekin.com. By Oftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. OfteringChevy.com. And by our friend Jake Weston, State Farm in Washington. For all of your insurance needs, call Jake Weston at 309-444-4441. Dunlap will punt to start the fourth quarter. Lemus and Lewis back deep to return the punt. Goes towards Lemus, but it's a short punt. Lands several yards in front of him, down at the 45-yard line. So that takes 12 seconds off the clock. And John, just like that, we go into fourth quarter territory. It's been a really weird game in terms of the pace and in terms of how quickly it has at least seemed to go. But now what do you do if you're Washington? You're getting towards crunch time. You've got to figure the offense has stagnated through the first 3 quarters. You're not going to have a ton of times left to reach out and grab the lead like they can do on this drive.
And I hate to say, you know, desperation mode with 11:48 left, but you almost got to think that way a little bit because nothing's really been working for them, Joey. I mean, we talk about the kick return and the punt return that they almost could have broke loose, but nothing really so far on offense that they've had a window of opportunity inside the red zone to score.
5 wide set for Williams, who is back into the game, and a diving catch. Jack Lemus comes down with it. Should go for a gain of 5 right at midfield.
23, Jack Lemus.
That is a completion for Washington.
To midfield. Second,
John, not
and
entirely
5,
sure what that
Washington.
looks like in terms of total passes and total completions, but Washington has had a lot of passes tonight where, for one reason or another, they haven't been able to connect, whether it's a bit of an errant pass or what have you. See if they can build on that momentum. Lemus is in motion. Jet sweep, he'll get the carry.
Got some nice blocks.
He does, and he gets inside the 45.
23,
And that'll go for a
Jack
Panthers
Lemus
first
to carry
down. So
for
the Panthers, with all the momentum in the world, coming out
Followed
of
by
the
14, Kyle Erickson, gain on
third
the
quarter
play
break.
into
And I like that point you made.
territory
You know, you
at
don't
the
want to call it
42-yard
desperation
line.
time with 11 plus on the
First
board,
down,
but if you're Washington, you've got to get some points on the board before too long.
But you got to feel good about these last two plays, Joey. And, you know, a nice pass out there on the outside and a really nice run for Lemus. Seems like they're picking up a little bit of momentum here and getting a nice pace going. See if they can continue that.
Williams gets the play call from Darryl Crouch on the sidelines. Brett Cazalet, Dunlap's head coach, works his defense. First down and 10, 5 wide set. Williams wants a deep ball. He's going to air it out long, looking for Lewis. Lewis gets up, tipped it, and it falls to the
Pass
floor.
attempt by the Panthers falls incomplete.
And a couple of Eagles were there. Chief
Intended
among them
for
was
number
Graham
9,
Glover,
Drew
but
Lewis.
Irby was there. Kaywan
Second
Irby
and 10, Washington.
for the Eagles, and that's a rare deep ball. Washington, I think, has looked for that a couple of times, as has Dunlap, but the defensive fronts have been so good that these quarterbacks haven't had a lot of time to throw it deep.
And Lewis, like Gabe Calhoun on the opposing end, one of those players that can kind of go up and catch it, you know, through however many defenders. He almost gets that one right there, Joey. But they might try that a couple times down the final couple minutes here.
Quick pass out to Lewis. Flag is down as Lewis spins out of the first tackle, and he's
Pass
brought
complete
down.
by
We'll see what the
Panthers
flag is.
To Lewis. There is a
Dunlap
penalty
defense
marker
holding
on
tough.
the play.
Dunlap defense, of course, under the direction of Brett Cazalet. His 12th season, he's made the playoffs 8 times. And that will go against
Penalty is an illegal shift against the Panthers.
Washington. Yep, just wanted to make sure I had that right, but indeed an illegal shift, and that'll back the Panthers up. But speaking on Brett Cazalet, made the playoffs 8 times in his 12 seasons. 65 and 38 entering tonight. And it's an Eagles
Correction,
team,
illegal
tying back into that,
motion
John, that has
against the
stayed
Panthers.
disciplined enough tonight. We've seen some penalties on both sides, but defensively they've
5-yard
held tight. They've
penalty.
got a lot of sophomores, a lot of youth on this
We'll
roster,
replay
more than Brett
second
Cazalet
down,
has
second and
seen in his
15,
time at Dunlap. Talked
Washington.
with him last week. So this Eagles defense is staying the course. They've capitalized on some Washington penalties and some miscues, and they've got themselves in a good spot here as the chains back up to force a 2nd and 15 for Washington.
Certainly are. See if their defense can hold strong. Washington trying to break through and get something going on their end.
Williams dropping back to pass, has a couple of options deep. Defense comes in, and he's forced to fire a high pass in the vicinity of Isaac
Pass
Mapson,
attempt
but
by the Panthers falls
for all intents and
incomplete
purposes,
over
he
the
was
head
just
of
throwing that one
83
away.
Maxson. 3rd and 15, Washington.
Sets up a Panthers 3rd down and 15, and you've got to figure this is a passing situation. The Panthers have, as we've talked about, they've migrated towards the passing game lately, and I would expect to see that continue here.
I would think, and you know, Dunlap just showed it on that last play. Joey doing a really good job at covering their wide receivers, but then putting a lot of pressure on Williams as well. Makes it tough for him to get an open look.
Bullard out wide as Williams is going to look. He's going to look to air it deep to the opposite side towards Mapson. Did Mapson come down with it inside the 10-yard line? Yes, he did. 1st and goal, Washington. The biggest offensive play for Washington tonight. That was over Gabe Calhoun. And much like we saw in Gabe Calhoun's reception earlier, John, Calhoun had Mapson covered, but Mapson won the battle.
And Joey, going back to the basketball season, which just ended recently, Mapson, when you needed a bucket, was your go-to guy, and one of the biggest plays of the game for Washington to really get something going, Mapson comes through.
1st down and goal, brought down by the string of his shoes by Mitchell Gore. Mitchell Gore got in there and tripped him up. As I said earlier, low man always wins. That's something they teach you
Second
In a lot of
and goal,
sports,
Washington
proves itself
at the
true in football
13.
tonight again.
Certainly does. And Joey, it's working for him right now through the air. Wouldn't be surprised to see Washington maybe throw it a couple times.
Mapson out wide for Washington. No defenders over there quite yet for Dunlap. Let's see if Washington can get this play off. Still no one on Mapson.
If Washington calls...
Now they see it, and we'll have a timeout called by Dunlap.
Joey, if they would have got a quick snap off there, he got
And
Mapson
before the
wide
next
open.
play, we have a timeout, Dunlap.
Yeah, Mapson saw that. Mapson was just kind of over there waiting. He wasn't going to tell anyone to snap the ball.
He was just
call
hanging.
attention to himself, but and that could have been the biggest play of the game to this point. We'll take this break to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Uftring West and Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. Also by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. By Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance
Second
needs, give
and
Jake
goal,
Weston a call.
Washington
309-444-4441.
after the timeout.
Joey, and 51 yards through the air for Williams, which is just 2 yards shy of what he had last week with 53.
Comes out with Mapson, Lewis, and friends spread out. Pass was intended for Lewis. Washington wanted a flag. They got it.
Pass attempt by the Panthers falls incomplete.
Should be pass
Intended for
interference.
Lewis. There is a penalty marker.
We would
on
assume
the
that would
play.
go against Dunlap. We'll wait for the call. And that would be half the distance to the goal and a
Penalty
first
is pass
down.
interference against
And that is the
Eagles.
call. Washington as close to the doorstep as they've been tonight. And John, if this didn't feel like crunch time before,
Penalty
kind of has
will
that feeling
move the
now.
ball
Yeah, it
down
certainly
to the
does, and
6-yard
you're
line.
right there knocking on the door.
And it's also
Joey, probably the best look they're going to get against such a strong
First
defense that
down,
Dunlap's
Washington.
had all night. They'd
Lemus
love
in
to punch this one in. but-
Certainly, and Lemus is in the backfield with Williams. Whistles, and now they will wind the clock.
correction, not an automatic first down. So
Not an automatic first down as we thought it would be, and the PA announcer clarifies that. So still second down. See if that becomes a factor. Lewis in motion. Lewis gets the handoff. Lewis with a little bit of space. Brought down. Inside the 5. Looks like he got it to the 4-yard line.
The Panthers. Tackled by
he did.
14, Erickson.
DeRon Gully Jr. on the stop. No, Kyle Erickson,
Gained
pardon
down
me,
to
on
the
the
4, third
stop
and
for
goal,
Washington.
Washington.
Third down and goal from the 4. John, do you stay with Washington? Has gotten creative because they don't have that north-south back like Lambert. Do we expect to see them go for that sweep again? Do they pass? I mean, they've been a little creative with the play call.
It's really hard to tell, Joey, that out of the gun here. You might see one of those slant passes. Then again, you could see a little sweep.
Nick Williams with Lemus behind him, drops back to pass, looks to the end zone, and it's broken up.
Pass
Broken up
attempt
by
the
Dietz.
Panthers falls incomplete.
Braden Dietz, who has had a stellar
Intended for
defensive
99,
performance for Dunlap
Beam.
tonight.
Fourth and
Jacob
goal,
Beam, pardon me, was the
Washington.
intended target. And Washington will
Looks like they're going to elect to go for it. And, Joey, with how strong Dunlap's defense is, you can't blame them right here. You must want to get back in the game and certainly don't want to settle for a field goal on your best drive all game.
Paul Sporer and Liam Knight were warming up, and they looked good from short range before the game. But as you said, now is the time to open it up. Biggest play of the night so far. 4th down and 4. Williams in the backfield with Lemus. He's going to pass. Gets the snap. Rolls out left. Has a little bit of space in front of him. Spins. Looking for the corner. Looking for the end zone. Yes! Touchdown, Washington.
Great run there for Williams. That spin. Turned the Jets on a little bit towards the end, Joey, and Washington finally pounds it in the end zone.
It's Nick Williams, the senior, punching it in.
Dunlap 7, Washington 6.
And pending the extra point, Washington can tie it up. A 4-yard touchdown run from Williams caps off what was a slow and methodical drive that still featured a lot of passing. 55-yard drive. Sporer on to attempt the extra point. And it is up and in. We are tied at 7. 7:46 to play. So wipe the slate clean, John. We have a tied ball game. Call it scoreless because we haven't seen a lot of scoring tonight. Dunlap fielded the opening kick to start this game, and they might as well start the new game right here.
Washington 7, Dunlap 7.
Certainly the game that we anticipated was going to be a close, hard-fought battle. A lot of defense we've seen, and Washington finally broke through and got that score. And Joe, you touched on Washington's kickers. You look at Nick Sinek. This potentially could come down to a field goal.
Sinek, Sporer, Liam Knight as well warmed up, kicked a couple for Washington, but Sporer their primary kicker. So yeah, this is where you see some strategies. Does Brett Caslett run down some clock here? You know, does he go for that quick strike and trust his defense, the defense that has been so stout tonight? Just gave up its first score a moment ago. Of course, Washington's defense has held stout too. You know, they gave up the drive and the score earlier with Dietz, but a lot that we could see here in this next 8 minutes or so.
Yeah, now that Washington's comfortable with, kind of getting through this defense, finally figuring out what was working with a little bit of pass first.
Calhoun bounces out. He's got space outside and gets to the 45. He almost didn't need the offense. Gabe Calhoun on the return.
Number 3, Gabe Calhoun.
And now every play takes on that big play kind of feeling.
With the tackle. Return out to the 43-yard line.
Down to the 43, go ahead.
And Joe, you said about eating some of that clock. Might see quite a bit of Mitchell Gore in these next 7 minutes here. Ground and pound with him, and trying to look for Calhoun outside as well, but I think we might see some passing here.
Drive starts at the 43. Couple of receivers spread out for Dunlap here, as you see. Washington stacks the box. Handoff up the middle to Gore. Gore had nothing. Washington correct to stack the box. Gore didn't gain a whole lot.
Tackle by 80, Payne Smith.
Payne Smith on the stop.
A loss of 2 on the play.
They tag him for a loss. Mitchell Gore, Washington has been
12, Dunlap.
Not inconsistent is not the word I'm looking for, but just as they'll give Gore a little bit, they'll take away a little bit from him on the ensuing play.
You can hear that Washington crowd really starting to get in, come to life a little bit here after finally getting on the board, and going to play that to their advantage.
And the Washington crowd has not had a lot to cheer about tonight. They've had a couple of big defensive stops, but they haven't had a lot on the offensive side of the ball to follow suit. Quick pass, a quick strike to Calhoun, and Calhoun swallowed up. In on the stop was Daniel Tyler Richardson. We've seen a couple of those receiver screens for both teams as well.
3rd and 10, Dunlap.
And that gets Dunlap back to where they started.
Probably see the Eagles go to the air again here. Joe, you'd have to think.
Well, and we've seen Dunlap run a couple of different ideas in these spots. We've seen them send the receivers out for streaks. We've seen them kind of go over the middle. We've seen screens. We've seen handoffs. Dunlap thinks a blitz is coming. And Burke is going to look for a little bit of space. Has a little bit of space, but Washington ends it. Jack Lemus the stop.
Really nice tackle there from Lemus, who got a late flag.
Brought down by 23, Jack Lemus, and then we have a penalty marker.
Going to be on the Dunlap end.
That's what it looks like. Washington celebrating, and you would think a flag coming in that late would be unsportsmanlike conduct or something to that effect against Dunlap. And we'll await the call, but the Washington sideline was fired up. Jack Lemus was
Unsportsmanlike conduct.
Leading that
against
charge. It
the
is
Eagles.
unsportsmanlike conduct against Dunlap, and that'll set the Eagles back 15 yards. And that's big, John, because that takes away the chance that Dunlap might have had to go for it. It was 4th and we'll see when they spot it new, but I mean they probably would have punted, but it takes away the opportunity.
And that a play like that, Joey, that unsportsmanlike conduct kind of adds to that Washington momentum, kind of sensing that you get Dunlap frustrated, you might steal some of that momentum back, and with 5:41 getting this ball back, Joey, you got to feel good if you're Washington.
Would have been 4th and 5. Now it's 4th and 20. Lemus back to return. Andover in punt. And Lewis, who is back there as well, will return it instead. Lewis looks for the outside. He's got it a little bit, spins, and he's knocked out of bounds at the 40.
Number 9, Drew Lewis.
Good return for Lewis.
Return for the Panthers.
Sets the Panthers up with another short field. And this is kind of, John, how Washington's playoff game last season at Oaklawn Richards went. Washington dropped that one 20-16, but it was kind of that game where both teams struggled to score, and it was the teams that had the opportunity late that stepped up, or the team, I should say, that had the opportunities late that stepped up. In that case, it was Oaklawn. Washington kind of on the other side of the ball here. What kind of drive do we expect?
I think you might see what you saw kind of on that first score that they had. Joe, you could see a little bit of pass, a little bit of run. I think they're going to mix it up. Like I said, Drew Lewis could be a big factor on this possession.
42 yards to drive for Washington. Williams looks, finds Pollitt. Pollitt knocked from behind by Dietz.
Pass complete by the Panthers, number 4.
Goes down with no problem.
11,
no problem for Washington, that is, John, because it looks like Dunlap is getting a little more aggressive here, maybe going for the ball instead of just the tackle.
Yeah. And Joey, as we kind of touched on, Washington getting that momentum, looking like they're finding that pass game and definitely getting comfortable with it. Seeing these last couple plays that they've had and even going into the last possession looked really good for them. Nick Williams kind of figured it out behind center.
Pollitt in motion, switches with Lewis. Williams has settled in and had a nice game. Has had a nice game indeed. Is going to look for Mapson. Mapson caught it. He's still up. He's still running. Touchdown, Washington. Flag comes in after the play. Pending the flag, Washington has the lead.
There is a penalty marker on
And Joey,
the play.
that's another one that
The pass was
Mapson
complete
went
from
one-on-one
Williams
with Calhoun, just kind of
33,
shakes him
Isaac
off.
Mapson.
Big touchdown for Washington to grab that lead late, if it holds.
Looks like Washington's coming back. Flag notwithstanding, Isaac Mapson with a couple of big plays. We'll see what the flag is. They've yet to signal. Washington has marched it back. Not celebrating quite yet.
What the flag was on there with be a late holding call, but
Well, the flag came in right there in the middle of your screen. You see where the officials are standing. Looked like about where the flag came in at, so you wouldn't think that was on the lines, either line. Looks like unsportsmanlike conduct against Washington.
Conduct penalty against the Panthers.
We could hear the official from here said it happened at the 12-yard line before the pass was thrown. An interesting call. It's going to back Washington up.
The ball is going to be spotted.
Touchdown wiped off the books. It's still 7 up. Just under 5 to play. John, I can't say I've ever seen that call before. Unsportsmanlike before the pass.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in quite a while, Joey. But Washington's got a chance to try to redo that.
Yeah, and penalty notwithstanding, because that didn't have anything to do with the play. What a play it was from Mapson. Has stepped up and made a couple of big plays tonight. That one would have given Washington the lead. It's Williams in the backfield with Lemus again. Keep an eye on Mapson. He's at the top of your screen with Lewis. And we'll have a timeout called
we have a timeout
by Washington. And we'll take this time to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. Also by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. By Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance needs, give Jake Weston a call at 309-444-4441.
Washington
Paul Sporer is warming up on the sidelines. Keep an eye on that. Washington only needs a field goal to take the lead. It's first down and 10 from the 28-yard line. And Williams is going to keep it himself. Nick Williams. Nice gain on first down.
Nick Williams.
And Joey, they'll certainly want to get in the end zone here, but Paul Sporer, not a bad option if you have to kick or elect for a field goal.
Sporer, a junior.
2nd and 3.
Converted on the extra point that tied it after Washington's touchdown a couple of minutes ago.
23.
Saw him warming up.
2nd and 5, Washington.
At the risk of applying the jinx, looked good from short range. See if Washington needs to employ him. High snap. Williams comes down with it. His pass is tipped at the line of scrimmage. Beyond the line of scrimmage, I should say, because coming in to break that up was Ryan Shuck. Shuck looked good. Breaking through the line made it tough for Williams. 3rd down and 5. It would be a 40-yard field goal from this spot on the field, to keep that in mind.
Even if you ran something here, Joey, just try to ground it out for some yardage. Give Sporer a chance, but I'm sure Washington will want to try to convert for this first down.
Line to gain is the 18. Williams over the middle, looking and finding Lewis. Lewis comes down with it. Did the ball come out? It did. It did. The only question now is it complete? It is. He came down with it.
Williams to Lewis.
And Lewis, crucial for Washington going back to their previous drive, I should say, when they scored. But a really nice slant play there from Williams to Lewis. And
they will.
If you're Washington, you're kind of in the driver's seat right now.
Gain down to the 9-yard line.
Under 4 minutes to play. Clock is stopped for the completion. And Drew Lewis with a big-time reception comes out of the game now.
I think you're going to want to run that clock down about as much as you can.
But by that same token, if you have the opportunities to score, have a timeout here. It's always an interesting discussion because you want to run the clock down, but if the opportunity to score presents itself, sometimes you'll see a running back go down before the end zone. I don't think, though, that this is that kind of situation here.
No, and you got to think with how good Washington's defense has been, hasn't allowed a score since the first quarter. Dunlap's only score. And if you score here, Joey, with, say under 3 minutes, you like to think Washington's defense could hold.
The trends of the game say that they would have a good opportunity to do so, and 73 all-purpose yards for Washington's Nick Williams. Washington's quarterback has had a nice game. The trends of the game, though, say, yes, the Washington defense can hold. Dunlap has only scored 7 points and would have no more than 3 minutes and 30 seconds or so to tack on a couple more.
Washington will have 1st and goal at the 9.
See how the Panthers play it. 1st and goal coming up. Williams leads his team back out onto the field. Dunlap defense tries to hold. Williams will keep it himself to the 5. Williams in zone. Washington leads. Touchdown Panthers. Nick Williams puts the Panthers ahead. And the Panthers down 7.
Nick Williams.
Until well into this quarter, they've surged back, and pending the extra point, lead by a touchdown.
How about that, Joe? You do it all quarterback with your only 2 scores of the game for Washington. Looking really good in this 4th quarter.
Paul Sporer, who we talked about a moment ago, on to attempt the extra point. Good snap, hold looks good, and the kick good as well.
Extra point
And the
is
Panthers
good.
are ahead by 7. A
Number 2,
6-play,
Paul Ford.
42-yard touchdown drive.
7, Malinowski in the hole
Capped off by
number
Nick
3,
Williams.
Gord. That makes the score now
Taking it in
Washington
himself.
14, Dunlap 7.
And John, we've seen that a couple of times, twice now. Quarterback doing it himself. That's how Dunlap scored its 7 points. Braden Dietz kept it for another keeper inside the 10-yard line. Nick Williams does the same for Washington. And now it's what we talked about a moment ago. You would trust that Panthers defense to hold based solely on the trends of the game. But this Dunlap offense, they've broken off a couple of big chunk plays. You know, they've had a couple penalties pop up over the course of the game. They've had some opportunities. They've been hit or miss. But all bets are off with 3:33 on the clock.
Certainly, Joey, and just because Washington's defense has been so solid all game long, you know, don't discount Dunlap right now. Look how many weapons they got back there. Mitchell Gore, Gabe Calhoun, guys that can really create their own looks and break something loose. So it's going to have to be a tall task for Washington to try to hold Dunlap here.
Irby and Calhoun back deep to return for Dunlap. Sporer to kick. Watch the onside here. And he pooches it to the 20-yard line. So a pretty good kick, all things considered. Flag comes in. Play moves to the 35-yard line. And you say watch the onside there. He wasn't lined up too far behind the ball. Kept the return team honest. A holding against Dunlap. A holding call against Dunlap. Graham Malcolm on the return.
It'll be marked off 10 yards from the spot of the foul.
That'll set Dunlap up.
Ball will be spotted at the
with a lot of the field in front of them.
First down,
3:27
Dunlap.
on the clock. They will have to drive 78 yards for a chance to tie it. Or, in a thing to consider, if Dunlap is able to score, John, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, got to think two-point conversion, too. Dunlap might try and walk off with a winner.
Yeah. And we've seen Dunlap in years past do that, Joey. We've seen Brett Caslap pull a two-point conversion out of his pocket.
Here's a give to Calhoun to start the drive. Calhoun to the 30. He's knocked out of bounds. Good start to this sequence for Dunlap.
Number 3, Gabe Calhoun.
Marked a little bit short
knocked out of
of
bounds,
the chains.
or brought down by number 9,
Sets up
Drew
third
Lewis.
and about 2.
Inbounds.
Or second down and about 2,
Gain up to
pardon
the
me.
31, second and 1, Dunlap.
And you get that sense, John, that, you know, Dunlap is in no hurry. They kind of know what they need. They know the situation. They're not going to try to march down the field in one play.
No, and it's certainly a team that can air it out as well, Joey. Could see that big pass like we saw earlier in the game. And here it is.
You might see that here, but instead it's floated out deep. Calhoun was the only Dunlap
Pass
receiver in
attempt
the
by
area.
Eagles falls incomplete.
Closest Washington player was Daniel Tyler Richardson, but he
Nearest
wasn't close
player
enough.
to it was a Panther.
to
Third
make the
and
play.
1, Dunlap.
Now it's third down and 1. Clock stops, of course, for the incomplete pass, and it's just what we talked about there. You wouldn't expect them to march down the field in one play. They had a chance there, just couldn't quite connect with Calhoun.
Might see a Mitchell Gore run here, Joey.
Gore is in the backfield, lined up behind Burke. Burke calls it out. Will hand it off to Gore. Gore dives and
Carry
got
by
enough
the
for the
Eagles,
first down. It looked
34,
like
Mitchell Gore.
from our vantage point up
Down
here,
by Malinowski.
close, but they will move the chains.
Gain up to the 32. First down, Dunlap.
So the clock's Washington's best friend right now.
It's getting intense. Just north of 2:30 to play. See if Dunlap picks up the pace a little bit here. Gore still in the backfield with Burke, the quarterback. Burke calls it out. He's going to look. And the pass goes out. It is caught by Brock Card.
Pass complete by the Eagles to number
Card
4,
is able to
Brock
get it out of bounds
Card.
after he picks up the first down.
Tackle by 9, Lewis.
Had him wide open there. Good gain for Dunlap. Pick up another first down.
First down, Dunlap.
Clock at 2:14. It's picking up. Dunlap able to use a little bit of time getting to the line here. Irby comes back into the game. Out goes Carson Roan. And the Eagles come to the line. Feel the intensity in the air here. Babcock Field in Washington. 4 wide receivers for Dunlap. Burke, oh, and we've got a jump. Jumping was Irby. Irby near us. And it's what we saw earlier when Williams got Dunlap to jump on the hard count. The hard count bites Irby for Dunlap. And it looked like, John, that was a pass because Irby was ready to get a move on down the field.
Certainly was, and not what you want if you're Dunlap here, especially with 2:14 left.
Backs him up a little bit. First down and 15. Irby in the same position. Card in the slot. 4 wide receivers and a running back for Dunlap. Burke dropping back to pass. He's got to do it himself. Bounces off a tackle. Stays on his feet, but the Washington defense is going to win that battle. They wrap him up and bring him down, and a flag comes in after the play.
There is a penalty.
Nolan Brown on the stop.
It's a personal foul against the
That'll be a
Panthers.
personal foul against Washington just as soon as Brown made the play. So the Panthers defense backs way up. That will result in a first down, and the fans below us not afraid to display how they feel. We'll see if that does result in a first down. Doesn't look like that it will. It'll be second down still. But second down, John, and much shorter.
And we'll bring up a second and
Yeah, not what
2,
you wanted there if you're
Dunlap.
Washington. Give Dunlap some better field position.
Burke awaits the snap. Gets it. Receiver streaking down the field. Wants the deep ball to Calhoun. And that pass was tipped.
Pass attempt
On
by
it
the
again
Eagles falls incomplete.
was Drew Lewis.
Intended for
Almost
3.
intercepted there.
Calhoun knocked away by number
Lewis
9,
was
Drew
there, and
Lewis. Third
Daniel Tyler
and
Richardson
2,
was in the vicinity as
Dunlap.
well. Sets up a third down and 3. And John, this is where that Washington penalty is so crucial because Dunlap has a couple options available right now. You don't have to go for the pass. You can maybe think, well, we can trade a little bit of time off the clock for a handoff and a Mitchell Gore first down.
Yeah, you certainly could. And see which route Dunlap elects to go with.
3rd and 3. Gore in the backfield with Burke. He does get the handoff, and he will have enough for the first down.
34, Mitchell Gore.
Good play
with
there
the
for
carry
Dunlap.
For the Eagles.
Kind of your go-to guy, Gore, when you need a big play down the stretch.
Gets down to the
gets that first
44-yard
down.
line. That's enough for a first down.
Move the chains,
Dunlap.
first down and 10. Noah Burlett on the stop. Burlett also listed as a quarterback for Washington. Played as a sophomore last season, a junior now. Clock runs. Dunlap with three wide receivers. Burke, the quarterback. Snap, looking down the field, looking for Calhoun. Calhoun sees the pass intercepted right in front of him. Daniel Tyler Richardson, Drew Lewis on the interception for Washington.
Number 9,
Drew Lewis steps up, and that may well do it for Washington.
2 plays ago, Joey almost had that interception. He gets it this time around.
Ball will be spotted at the 10-yard line.
Intercepted at the 10-yard line. Pass was intended for Gabe Calhoun. At a matchup that we've highlighted all evening long, Drew Lewis and Gabe Calhoun. Lewis, that pass looked like it was underthrown a little bit, kind of right into the hands of Lewis.
Yeah, he kind of left it floating up there, and Lewis perched right under it and saw that one the whole way there, Joey.
Just as Dunlap won last week on that late interception. It all comes full circle, and the Panthers are 71 seconds away. So we'll see if that indeed does it. Washington backed up a little bit here, and a flag comes in before the snap.
Penalty markers before the snap. Penalty is
And we'll go against Washington. They watched the play clock go a little too quick. So the delay of game, it's 1st and 15. And John, Washington can't make any mistakes backed up towards the end zone like this.
No, it's not a place you really want to be right now. So, and then Joey, as you're kind of looking, you don't want to look at, if pass Dunlap could deflect it, get an interception. You're kind of in a tough spot here.
Handoff to Brock Skaggs.
49, Brock Skaggs, the carry.
Skaggs, a starter for Washington. We have not called his name a ton tonight. Braden Dietz on the stop. Clock runs. So we got at least one more snap coming up here.
It's a gain of 1. 2nd and 14, Washington.
Dunlap having used some timeouts earlier. This comes back to get him now.
Yeah, it certainly does. These are timeouts you want in your back pocket here, and Washington a chance to run that clock down.
Clock runs. You see at the bottom of your screen, play clock is at 5. And Washington will kneel it. Dunlap does not have any timeouts left.
That's going to do it, Joey.
And Washington, after trailing for nearly the entire game up until the 4th quarter, 2 late touchdowns are going to push the Panthers to 2-0.
Really nice, hard-fought comeback win for the Panthers. Thanks to the Washington defense, and a big game for Nick Williams getting those 2 touchdowns to keep the Panthers on top.
14-7 is your final score. The Panthers, a big home win, and John, hard fought is where we'll start with describing this one. A defensive battle. We did see ultimately a lot of passing, but the defenses for both teams were able to step up late. And how about the Panthers?
Yeah, that was a big comeback, and Joey, their defense was solid all game long. Only gave up that 1 touchdown to Dunlap early. Kept them in it the whole game, and then Nick Williams, like I said, down the stretch to take over there. But really, really nice win for Washington, and certainly a game we would expect, just a hard-fought game and very close game.
Very close game indeed. And John, when we talk about a player of the game, it might have to be Nick Williams, Washington's quarterback. 2 touchdowns, responsible for both of Washington's scores. 75-plus yards of offense in the second half alone. Williams really stepped up and led the team when they needed a leader. He split time in the first half with Gus Lucas at quarterback. Lucas threw an interception, which until the late interception there that sealed it for Washington, the Drew Lewis interception, that was the only turnover of the game to that point. But Nick Williams stepped up and was a steady hand at quarterback. We'll have to see the completion numbers, how many did he complete, how many were incomplete, because a lot of balls did hit the turf, but stayed the course, got the job done, and the Panthers grit out a big win.
Yeah, and, going back to earlier in that game, Joey, when we saw Cale Lambert going out, a guy that we talked so much about for Washington, who was so big last week with 4 touchdowns, was that next man up mentality, and Nick Williams certainly answered the call there and scored when they needed it most. And then just credit to Washington's defense. A lot of the players that were big on offense, like Jack Lemus, Drew Lewis, were just as big on defensive end. And Drew Lewis having that game-sealing interception. All-around hard-fought game for Washington on both sides of the ball.
Certainly was. And for Dunlap, they were right in it. This is a loss that's going to sting. They controlled the game for much of the game, but it was a slim margin of control, if we'll term it that. They only led by as much as a touchdown at any point. That 7-point lead was true for much of the game, but just saw it slip away late. And after a back-and-forth affair with Pekin last week, you'll have those games over the course of a season, a shortened season this week, the 6-week IHSA season, but they played a good game, a stout game. You lose a game only giving up 14 points. Your defense hung in there, and just maybe a couple things on offense they'll work towards this week.
Yeah, and I think Dunlap kind of learned from this game, grasp some things from it going into next week. And if you're Washington, gaining that momentum back, we've seen Washington do this in previous years, kind of sneak out some late games. And I think, they're on that 2-0, feeling good about themselves. It's good going into next week.
Certainly would think both teams have some positive takeaways, but it's Washington stepping up in this one. And you get a look at the Panthers walking off the field a winner. Darryl Crouch is talking things over with Drew Lewis and Timmy Malinowski. 35-yard line. Probably a pretty good conversation. Lewis, the hero late, with the big interception to seal it. But that is where we'll leave it tonight. I want to shout out our entire crew once more. I'm Joey Wright alongside John Camosa with the Clutch Sports Media team. 9 strong tonight. John Michael was on our game camera. Matt Harrington and Francisco Alonso were running social media for us tonight all around this evening. Larry Larson was at the controls of our computer. Jacob Steinberg, Skip Schermerhorn, and Cody Roskins. Jacob Steinberg was getting some good content for us on the sidelines for social media as well. Skip Schermerhorn, our spotter, and Cody Roskins, our statistician. Good stuff from everyone all night long. And that is where we will leave it for you in Washington tonight. Stay tuned to our social media channels for news on where we will be next week. We'll have some announcements coming for you in the coming days. Final score, Washington 14, Dunlap 7. This has been a presentation of Clutch Sports Media, and we thank you for watching.